I apologize because my fan is going to be very present in this audio, but it is hot.
It's
So,
really hot. I think perhaps the audience will forgive us.
Yeah, it is 31.1 degrees in my room right now. What is that in Fahrenheit?
hot. That's what it is. It's hot.
Hello, and welcome to Chatty AF, the anime feminist podcast. My name is Vrai. I'm the daily operations manager at Anime Feminist. You can find me on Blue Sky sometimes at writervrai, and I am joined, as per usual, by the wonderful Chiaki and Sai.
Hi, this is Chiaki Hirai. I am one of the editors for Anifem. You can find me on my socials at terrible.moe. That has all the links, because who knows where we are online these days.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sai, and I'm joining you from my fainting couch. Very sad and hot. I am a staff editor here at Anime Feminist, and once again, very sad and hot because I watched this show.
I'm glad you're hot, though.
I think the hot
So
is
important.
the hot is definitely its physical and its temperature. Jesus
You're
Christ.
having a hot boy summer? Is that so what the kids
Oh my
say?
God, I'm
Yeah,
having
yeah,
a
yeah.
hot boy summer for sure. All the time. It's
And
always hot boy summer in this temperamental body.
all right, folks at home, welcome back to our Revolutionary Girl Utena Watchalong. It has been a little bit of a gap just to fill folks in at home. We posted about this on our Patreon and on our social media, which incidentally you can find at linktr.ee/anime feminist, and that's all the places we are. But we had to take a bit of a hiatus from this watch along for a little while because of various just health and life issues of the team. Cy wrote an article back in June, maybe late May, that covered truly just a fraction of the things they've been dealing with this year.
I'm having a hard
Jeff,
time. I'm
yeah,
having
Yeah.
such a hard
yeah,
time.
A little bit.
Little, just
yeah.
little.
And Chiaki, you two are going through it with day job stuff, and we are about to head into the heaviest part of the show, so we thought, let's just put it on pause for a second. So I hope you will forgive us as we shake off the dust a little bit. Also, while we were away, Crunchyroll dropped Utena from streaming without any warning whatsoever. We don't know why.
They sure did. They sure did. Went to search for it and was like, oh. and and then went on Twitter and was like, oh, I guess it's true. It's just not there anymore.
Yep. Fortunately, Nozomi, the official uploads that Nozomi put on their YouTube channel over a decade ago are still there. They are a little bit crunchy visual fidelity wise, and they do utilize the old subtitles from the DVD release, which are not bad subtitles by any means. It just means there are one or two lines, and you two are both fluent in Japanese, so it's not like it's a crisis. It just means there will be a little bit of an extra hoop to jump through next time about one particular episode that I want to talk about. But yeah, that's where we are right now. And speaking of where we are, how are you? How are you feeling about this?
Well, you know
Woo!
how I am usually in terms of emotional distress. Never actually feeling it, but I can understand. How about you, Sai? How are you doing?
Ooh, so Sai made a big old mistake and watched all of these back to back and was like, oh God. Oh God. I mean, everything happens in this set of episodes. Like, wow. Wow. There weren't, it was just me and a pack of wild berry Pop Tarts.
It's a lot. Yeah, if you're so we do try to keep this cast. Sai and Chiaki have not seen the show before, so we try to keep discussion, spoiler free for anything after where we're at. But if you're refreshing your memory at home, this is the stretch of episodes that's a lot about sexual violence, so I think that will be a lot of the conversation today. Just as a heads up. I think once we start talking about Anthy, we're not going to stop talking about Anthy, so I want to make sure we touch on the two-parters that come before those episodes. And I'm genuinely curious, before I have anything to say, what you thought about the two Juri episodes.
Jesus Christ, where's the therapist? Where's the therapist for these children? Especially Juri. Oh my god.
Juri goes through a lot. And she doesn't deserve it.
She does not deserve it, but she also gets freed from that pain. Is anyone free in this world?
I mean, she gets to live with it. She gets to live with Ruka's, like, I guess, death.
And, like, fuck Ruka for just being like, we die, I'm out. Like, dude. Bro. Fuck off. Like, bro. I know he's a child. But, bro. Sometimes you can tell a child, fuck off. Like, just comes in and causes mess and dies.
I know that.
You know, who among us has not been there? Except for all of us.
And sexually assault someone while he's alive. Like, dude. Bro.
Uh-huh.
You know what? Not someone, two someones.
Yeah,
they definitely
came in
fucking
like
that car.
like a hurricane.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just passes through.
Oh my god, just passes through, fuck Shiori in the back of a car while Akio's just there like, vroom vroom, which is real awkward. Also, question, do you think Akio is keeping protection in that car? Because I think Mr. End of the World really ain't about that. Was very concerned during that scene, had some adult concerns. Just does that, and then decides to kiss Juri in a way that's like, ew, gross, ugh, gross. Ugh.
Yeah, good. Okay, I feel validated. Go ahead.
I have started to just call Akio's car the village bicycle, I guess.
That car,
you're not wrong.
That car is so dirty. It needs one of those TikTok deep cleaning videos. Jesus Christ. Everybody gets someone in the back seat of that car. And Akio just like, he just does his like Olympic handstand, flips over, sits on the like hot hood of that car, just scalds his butt cheeks, which is what he deserves.
That's how you scuff the hood. You know, I learned that from was this Showtime? I think it was Showtime.
It's so funny. Just pops off like he's Japanese Simone Biles. Pisses me off. Pisses me off so much. Fucking hate Akio.
This is incredible.
No,
yes,
that two-parter is rough.
Mm-hmm.
Because I, you know, a callous reading might say, well, Shiori fucked around and found out. I don't think she deserves what happens to her. I don't think she deserves to be torn down in front of the entire school. And the entire school just stands there and watches as she has like a meltdown, which oofa doofa. I don't think she deserves this. I don't think Ruka's attempt to break Juri out of this one-sided pain and relationship she's in helps. I felt so bad when that locket breaks and Juri cannot breathe. Like, it is, she just crumbles. And then it rains, and it's like, oh yeah, she's hurting. It just sucks. Yeah. It just sucks, and everyone hurts.
Yeah.
And Shiori wasn't even asking for anything. Like, no. You know, it was Ruka coming in to offer a promise for something greater, and then immediately discards her the very second she's no longer abused. So that's, you know, the definition of abuse right there, right?
Oh.
Yeah, it's near as I can figure is that because, you know, he's been secretly in love with Juri this whole time. We're given to understand that he's, like, his goal is to basically do what he thinks Shiori did to Juri when they were younger. Is the best I can figure, but, like, why? You have not benefited Juri in any way by doing this.
Well, and, like, what Ruka fails to understand is what happened to Juri is, like, very comp head. And, like, you're just a cis man with blue hair coming in and fucking around. And then, like, he literally gets to leave the damage he did behind. Like, in the most physical way. And it sucks. He sucks, and he should Well, I mean, if his ghost existed, should feel ashamed.
You know, if we could go back to the Black Rose saga, you know, we should just put his body into the pit. Just put him in the pit.
Look,
Burn him up.
there's still probably some coffins down there.
Put him in the pit. Put him in the pit.
No,
Put him in the pit for Pride Month.
Oh God.
yeah.
Happy Pride.
No, I have always kind of disliked these two episodes. I think they're the weakest in the show, and I think I finally this watch my fifth, my sixth, put it together. Why? Because all of the student council duels we sort of talked about last time are about the various student council kids getting like super close to figuring out what their central issue is, and then they like fail at the last hurdle and regress into their old behavior. And like the other kids, you know, Nanami's episodes that we're going to talk about, Miki and his sister, and when we get to Touga next time, they're all sort of really tightly written to kind of draw closed stories that have been building through each of the three arcs. But with Juri, it's like the writers backed themselves into the corner, where Juri's very proud and very set in her ways about this issue. There's nobody that can force her to change that perspective that we've established up to this point, right? She's not going to be impressed by Akio because she is like the most lesbian. Or Touga, who's technically the only one who was above her in stature at this point. You know, she and Utena kind of have developed a rapport, but she doesn't listen to Utena. And Shiori is so into sort of her self-loathing need to hide behind other people to, like, shore up her own lack of self-worth that they don't talk to each other at all, and there's basically no way to force them into a confrontation. So we had to make up a new character who we've never met before, who is magically better than Juri at everything, to force her to get to this place where she duels and doesn't even try to give up this relationship. It is torn from her, so it doesn't feel like she is making that progress herself. And I think that's why I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like fuck ass Gary Stu. I hate him. I hate him so much. Because it's exactly what you said. It's just what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of, like, he has no bearing whatsoever. I was like, okay, well, you're here. Cool. Oh, and you're gone.
You're a dude. And we're moving on. All right, cool. Yeah. Let us never speak of Ruka again. He sucks. I truly hate him more than Akio. At least Akio is interesting.
Right.
Akio at least has staying power. He has the nerve to not die, you know?
Yeah, and he's got a car.
He's got a car.
He's very casual about
Boy, has he got a car. Bad things happen in that car.
Jesus Christ.
Actually, I'm wondering if it's the same car. Because they crash the car once in a while, right?
He's just constantly buying the same model.
Yeah.
He did mention it's like the most popular
right
model this season. So I mean, does he just own the dealership?
That's the funniest thing. It's the funniest thing about Akio I've ever thought.
Let's move on to Nanami's two-parter, aka the one where I cry, and then I don't stop crying for 4 episodes. So we're finally talking about the incest thing. How do you feel like this pays off all the uncomfortable stuff from the early arcs?
Yeah, it actually kind of does. In the most horrific way. Yeah, which is that Nanami's like, oh, this isn't, no. This is not what I thought it was gonna be like, no. Real rude of her brother to pull that shit. Real rude of her brother.
Yeah.
To just fuck around with her.
And it's funny that, like, you know, to fuck around with her in the sense like, oh, we're not actually related, which gives her an existential crisis. But the fact is, they are brother and sister.
It is so incredibly fucked up of him. And I do like in episode 31 the frog motif of every time he pushes her a little. I think that's very funny. But it's also just like, it sends her into this really obsessed like behavior until she realizes, oh, this is not what I thought it was. Like, this is not nope, don't want this now, don't want, no. um, it's a really brutal way she learns that lesson.
Yeah, it's rough. I think I only noticed on this watch that the frog motif uh, recurs whenever Touga is basically directly imitating Akio. Like, we have it twice with him, and then they repeat it one more time when Akio is quote unquote teasing Utena in the observatory, and it's, oh no, now I'm sad. This is all directly learned mimic behavior from the predator who is predating upon him. It all rolls downhill. I think we keep coming back to how opaque Touga can be compared to some of the other characters, but what do you think he's doing here?
Is he in full command, or at least like a knowledgeable of Nami's motivations, and it's really pushing him to be like, well, I don't want any of that. I don't want to be a part of this, so I'm going to do the worst possible thing to Nanami to ensure that, we stay in the clear. Or is he just stirring the pot?
Yeah, it feels like he's trying to prove a point.
Mm.
But it also feels like what you said, Chiaki, where it's just like, okay, it feels like he's also trying to disillusion her to what this relationship actually would be like. Because Nanami has this very romanticized relationship of like this, we're not technically blood related, but we still have this romance, or we're like brother and sister, and we still have this passion between us. And then she sees what that relationship actually looks like and sees how actually abusive it is. Um, and it feels like he maybe was kind of prepping her for the fact that like, hey, it's actually not like sunshine and rainbows. There's actually real horror that can happen in this kind of relationship, especially if you go into it knowingly. But also, I don't know that
Yeah.
Touga is about that. I think that's kind of the build up is like it's not quite clear what exactly he's doing. If he's just doing this because he knows his sister is very dramatic, or if he's doing this with a point.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do wonder, like, maybe, I know Toga sucks incredibly, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's still a teenage boy. Yeah, he might have, like, a sense of morals, or at least some kind of, like, thought for his sister, right? So, like, is he trying at least, or what?
Yeah, because, like, I think, on the one hand, Touga, benefits the most from the existing power structure and is the most threatening in that sense. But also, yeah, like you said, he's also still a child, and I think he truly loves both Nanami and Saionji. And in this way that's, like, at war with the fact that he's put in this position where it benefits him to use and hurt them. And I think he's sort of caught at a crossroads there. And so, yeah, I think I wonder if he isn't, like, I think I agree with you that it almost seems like he's trying to push her away on purpose with this.
His intent ahead of like the end of episode 31 really feels like okay, he knows that Akio is doing this, and he himself is like, I don't want this to ever be something that happens to me and my sister, like, and is kind of trying to say like, hey, I'm gonna give you a taste of it. And then once Nanami kind of has that like really big realization of horror when she witnesses like Anthy. I mean, because I to say Akio and Anthy have a relationship is to say that what is happening between them is consensual, and it's just not. um, but
Mm-hmm.
when she witnesses their interaction and the abuse kind of being visited upon Anthy, yeah, all that her brother has done kind of makes sense in this really frightening way.
I think obviously you've both seen Dear Brother. What familiarity do you have with, like, 80s, 90s? It's not just shoujo that has pulled this, obviously, because there are certain, like, pick a card, pick a sister complex show. It's probably in there, but, let's use shoujo as a shorthand because this is a shoujo series itself. But, like, to what extent have you come across the, yay, we're not blood related trope?
Yeah, quite a bit.
I mean,
quite
yeah,
a bit.
even without shoujo, often, right? Like, you have
Yeah, very
like,
much.
oh, we're not related after. Okay, we can. The marriage is okay, right? Especially in isekai stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh
isekai
God.
and like I don't want to place I don't want to throw shoujo under the bus here because I feel like nowadays it is much more common in like little sister wish fulfillment series where it's like you want the fantasy of this person who's never known anything outside of you and lives with their life wrapped around you, but let's make it technically legally a little less icky so I can absolve myself emotionally, and it's bullshit. Um, but yeah, so I think what I like so much about these episodes is that, like, Nanami doesn't want them to secretly not be related. The reason she still very much looks at their relationship like a child, and the fact that she has blood relation to Touga means that he can never throw her aside like she's watched him do with other girls, every other girl, for as long as he has been dating their whole lives. And and so when that changes, and yay, we're not blood related, like it devastates her because now she's just another girl. There is nothing about their relationship that protects it for her. And she discovers yeah, what she wants, that sort of nebulous closeness that she wants in her mind, where they, bathed together and shared a bed together, and it was this very innocent, pure emotional closeness that you can't have with another person when you grow up. She doesn't. It's not. It's not the same as just turning it into a sexual relationship. Like those things are different.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking because her realization that like she kind of has to find who she is to live. Like because that has kind of been her special thing is like that's up until now. I mean, besides that cowbell incident that I'm sure Nanami desperately wants everyone to forget about. Um her her special connection is her brother. That's that is kind of her reason why she exists and acts the way she does, and like she's kind of faced with like this stark realization of like I yeah yeah, maybe. And I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe I hope she realizes that the things she thought was special maybe don't go the incest route, sweetie. Mm-mm. Also, don't be weird and watch him while he's showering. That was 20 seconds too long.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say that that was a very long effort to save on production costs.
It sure
Yeah,
was.
we're saving up for the finale here. We're doing some long shots. It's the year after Evangelion.
Yeah, okay. Because, like, they just held that for, like, I mean, it was like 17 seconds because I counted because I was like, whoa. Like, they held it for so long. And I was like, girl, just pick up his phone and go. Pick up his flip phone, leave the room, the uncome for everybody. Um, just, oh, Nanami. Oh, God, I'm so worried for your
Yeah,
child.
so worried. But honestly, it's my standing theory is that she gets closer than any of the other student council kiddos to self-actualization. Like she doesn't make it either, but I think she's the closest.
Yeah, no, she absolutely.
And like I
She, she comes
true
so close.
yeah, and I mean she and Anthy are neck and neck for my favorite characters in the whole show, and I love watching them interact. It's maybe my favorite thing. The fact that by this point in the series, you can really see how they're foils, and I think the reason that Anthy enjoys picking on her's not the right word because Nanami always starts it, and it's like, and then it just turns into you bring a knife, she brings a cannon. But I think I think Anthy sees her old self in Nanami, and that really hurts me. It's almost during the episodes where she's staying over. It's almost like Anthy is quietly venting off steam by freaking Nanami out.
With a saw. With a nice saw.
Yeah,
Oh my god. Oh my god. The way Nanami was like, girl, I don't trust you with that. And Anthony's like, it's no problem. Don't worry, sweetie. We're Gucci. And
Or
love
are
it.
we?
Love it. Love it so much. Because, like, that's also one of the rare times where we get to see Anthy as, like, a full-fledged human with a personality.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that little glimpse of her with the ice all where it's so clear she's teasing Nanami. And it's so, and it's kind of like, whoa, put that saw down. It's also incredibly funny because, like, Anthy is a jokester. Like, she kind of likes teasing people within a certain boundary. And I think that's really lovely. And um, it's really a shame what all comes after.
Yeah. So let's just rip that band-aid off. Episode 33 is devastating and affects everything that comes after. And just tell me your feelings. Let's start there.
I find it so brutal how Anthy delivers Utena as a bouquet of flowers to her brother. And ultimately, that delivery is that Utena is processing her coerced, yeah, I mean, you could say it's coerced sex at the most mild, really, it's rape, is her processing her rape through the most mundane thing, which is what kind of sandwich she is going to make for tomorrow's lunch. Um, and it's very clear it's a sex scene because at one point she pauses and makes an expression that indicates that this is something sexual is happening. And you can tell she's anxious throughout the episode because she's stretching more. She's stretching a lot. Like, she's constantly doing a stretch. She's moving. And it just really hurts that Anthy has given her up to her brother in a way that I think it's easy to frame Anthy as a villain, but I think it's much deeper than that. I think this is someone who has been deeply abused and dehumanized following an order. And I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
cruelty, is that both of these young women have been placed in positions where they exist for Akio's pleasure. And he does not give one single flying fuck about either one of them past control.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's that deep rooted trauma that you can't really um, undo without some serious therapy, and also it's not something you really recover from per se. It's something you work through and live with for the rest of your life, right? And so it's unlearning those unhealthy patterns, which I think a lot of people can't break from, and Anthy is no different there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and through these episodes, a lot of Anthy's dialogue is about how she loves her brother and she has her own prince already, and like these very these very adoring things that I think I we're invited to ask. I guess to what degree is that earnest? What does that mean?
I mean, I think if you are someone who understand sexual assault and sexual
Mm-hmm.
abuse as a multifaceted, like, layered thing, you can absolutely love your abuser. You can earnestly love
Yeah.
your abuser while also being horrifically abused. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and those things don't have to be separate, nor do they invalidate the abuse or invalidate the person. Like, if you're talking about filial abuse, you absolutely can love the person that continues to hurt them. In fact, I think that's actually what makes the abuse worse, right? Is like, it's so clear Anthy loves her brother. It's so evident that she loves him. But also, he, through her and through the abuse he's visiting on her, is able to weaponize her and is able to get the prize he wants, which is Utena. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, like, it, she's delivered. I mean, just like a flower delivery, she is delivered to him. He, I mean, literally plucks the petals off of her. He takes away, and I don't want to get into, like, he takes away the special thing for her. He rapes her. He rapes her, and Utena, from my perspective, is trying to process this as best she can through the mundane thought of making a sandwich. which is like not an unrealistic thing that people do. I mean, how many times have we seen stories of marginalized people, getting through rape, getting through sexual assault by trying to just like distance themselves to survive that event, right? And so, I mean,
Yeah.
Anthy loves her brother, but she's also a victim. And
Mm-hmm.
she is the weapon with which he is visiting harm upon somebody else.
Yeah, I think the scene that always really gets me is at the very beginning when she's in the observatory and she talks about, I don't want to look at the real stars. Like at this point, she has closed herself in this reality that she's built, where she loves her brother and it's just the two of them against the world, and she needs that reality to not look at how awful she's feeling about this. Um, uh, what you were saying about the dissociation, like, is so, yeah, so on point. Like, the thing it always reminds me of the sandwich scene is, of all things, this song "Oasis" by Amanda Palmer, which is like this super happy, bouncy pop song about this girl who's described. She goes to a party, she gets sexually assaulted, and then she has to have an abortion. And but the chorus always comes back to, she sent a fan letter to Oasis, and she's really excited about it.
Yeah, because I think a really simple reading of that scene is like, oh, I can't ever think about sandwiches again. And I think that if you are someone that has that gut reaction of that, I invite you to think deeper about why someone in the midst of a sexual act would need to think and talk about something else, because like Utena doesn't talk like this the rest of the series. Like, she's particularly chatty this episode in a way that clearly indicates that, like, because of how the camera is positioned, that this is at Akio and this is her trying to process what I suspect she knows is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And she's trying to process the fact that, like, there's no amount of no she can say. He's going to visit this upon her regardless. And I think if you get to that point and you're like, oh, this is why is she talking about sandwiches? You really have to think deeper about the fact that, like, why is he doing this to her? And why has he created a situation where she has to fully leave that moment, and maybe what
Mm-hmm.
that means, right? Like, the sandwich isn't the point of it, the sexual assault
Yeah.
is. Um,
Well, and I'm not. I think you could maybe say, I don't even know that she thinks of it as impending rape, which it very much is. This is rape. Even if she quote unquote consented, she's a child. She has no means to leave. But power dynamics, all that other stuff. But like, this is the would be the if we assume that this is contemporary. The mid 90s. You are a girl who goes somewhere overnight with a boy, and gosh, some stuff is gonna happen because he took you out and he bought you dinner, and like there's just that things will leave place because all men are wolves. And I think,
I
yeah,
don't think
it's
she
so
thinks of it as rape,
normalized.
actually. Yeah, you know what,
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
yeah, I don't think she actually thinks of it as rape. It's just what happens, right? That's just what happens
Mm-hmm.
when you're a young woman and it's an older man, and he's been so nice to you. He's letting you stay in your house, and in his house, like, this is kind of the
And you
payment
do
with
like
margin.
him. You enjoyed
Right,
kissing him. So
right. The
Yeah, like
payment for marginalized people is all for marginalized genders is always the body, right? So, like,
hmm,
it's just kind of a
mm-hmm.
social thing.
yeah. Well, like from what I've seen from Utena so far is that she's seeking that prince, right? And I'm wondering, like, okay, like as a teen, and you're with somebody that may or may not be that person, and they've been nice, as you said, they've been nice, they've been doing all this stuff. He's been, sort of the vision of who she would maybe model a prince after. She might be like feeling like, okay, this is what I owe him, right? and and she does, like, it's wrong, but like when you're a kid and you don't know how to process, you don't have that education or that knowledge that what he's doing is just completely fucked up. That, you know, she's trying to internalize. She knows, she has that gut feeling that this isn't going to be quite what she wants to do, but she's trying to justify herself, or at least take her mind off of it with the sandwiches, right?
Well, and
Mm-hmm.
I think this episode, because I had to take a break. I'm not gonna lie, and I watched 2 hours of how it's made, and I learned how jawbreakers and stuff are made, and that was a great distraction because like, one thing I really one thought I couldn't get out of my head was like, I remember in the 2010s when like the whole consent is sexy movement was happening, um, and how confusing consent had been before then. And I will say, like, as a survivor of rape and sexual assault, like, I saw a lot of myself in Utena, and I think that might have been for me why I got very triggered was like, you know,
Yeah.
it growing up, this was just kind of what men did. And like that doesn't justify it at all. Like men I stand fully by the thought that like, marginalized non men marginalized genders should not have to like be covered head to toe for men to not rape. Men should just not rape. Um
Mm-hmm.
and so like one thing I thought about was the fact, and you said it, Fry, of like, you know what, maybe she didn't know. Maybe this is just what was expected. Maybe at some point some adult or girls in her peer group said, well, that's just what that's just what it takes, or that's just what he's gonna want. It's you just take your mind off of it and bear with it. It'll be over quickly. And like, that's a very real thing that we still have in the world. Like that still exists in
Mm-hmm.
2024. I think it's really hard for people to think it exists in 2024, but it absolutely does. There are absolutely teenagers, young adults who believe that this is just what men do. And like you
Mm-hmm.
just got to be patient and bear with it, and maybe it won't happen often, but like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really horrific. It's really horrific. It's just like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, she didn't deserve this. And
Yeah.
and he
Well,
and he
and like,
manipulates her into
Mm-hmm.
it. He manipulates her into
hmm
it.
yeah, and it's I'm sure it's so much easier when she is clear, like she's attracted to him, and like maybe one would want to do things with him at some point, but not like this. Not, it's so placed thoroughly out of her control and her comfort and her knowledge, and like that's part of what's so upsetting about it is taking these feelings and using them as a weapon against her. I do think before we talk about the last episode, I feel like we do kind of need to at least sit for a minute with. I guess I want to check in about the racial politics for both for Anthy and for Akio, honestly,
Ooh, oh boy. Woo.
because yeah, please, sigh.
It
Not to
is
put you on the spot if you don't.
it
Yeah.
is striking to me that the biggest villain, and I think that term is apt at this point, that the biggest villain and the person who is doing some of the most violent physical assault is the darkest character in the cast.
Yeah.
It is really discomforting to me. Also, I didn't say it, but like, shout out to episode 30 for having a weird afro joke in the middle of the skit that was
Yeah.
unnecessary.
Uh huh.
Unnecessary. Um, just like I had to pause because I was like, what the actual fuck? But it is so fascinating to me that it is a dark skinned, multiracial, biracial, because I mean, it's clear from their names that Akio is presumably Indian and Japanese, as is his sister. It is strike, and they're drawn differently too. I just want to say they're drawn a little differently. Like Akio has less Japanese features, despite having a Japanese name, and like has some kind of worrying stuff about his character in the way he's drawn. But it's really striking that the darker skin, the very obvious darker skin character, is the villain, but also that his sister, who is also darker skinned, receives so little sympathy outside of our main character. Like, Utena gives Anthy a lot of sympathy, but I don't see a lot of sympathy coming to Anthy as a victim. Um, In fact, anytime she's depicted after Akio assaults her, is like this very wanton kind of laying in bed, hair everywhere. This I'm gonna use like a trope often assigned to black women, the Jezebel. It's kind of how she gets
Mm-hmm.
painted. It's really discomforting, and y'all, I don't know that the show's gonna say anything about it. But it
I.
is
Mm-hmm.
it's
It's the
upsetting.
For me, it's the
Mm-hmm.
volume, right? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
objectification for all of the characters in a sense. Each one gets their sort of turn, but Anthy in particular, we keep going back to her in that state.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. It's so upsetting. It is
Mm-hmm.
so upsetting. Um and it's dehumanizing, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that is part of what is at play, right? Is like this radical dehumanization of Anthy. Um but then I think of like the only time that her Indian heritage is brought up is for a fucking joke about going to
Mm-hmm.
India to get curry. It's like it's just like, I know perhaps it isn't fair to apply the standards and expectations of what we would want today onto yesterday, right? I get that. However, that also negates the fact that like fucking brown people, dark brown people have always existed.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah.
it's really uncomfortable. It's increasingly getting, because like, in theory, everyone here is Japanese and by proxy, non-white. But like, there is a severe difference between like what Akio looks like and his Japanese contemporaries look like.
No, I mean I
Mm-hmm.
will say this in terms of like the notion of, well, whiteness or Japaneseness in anime. Like I think it's more of a symbolic thing, right? Like you don't have to literally be white to exude that privilege, especially when you're looking at something like anime, where there's a presumption of who is quote normal or average looking versus somebody that's exotified. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because we have that huge debate over whether Sailor Moon is Japanese or white or not. I don't give a shit about it. These aren't thoughts that people have when you're Japanese, right? When you're
Mm-hmm.
Japanese and you're watching an anime and you see like a quote unquote white coded character, you just perceive them as a Japanese character because you are in Japan, you are Japanese, and you're watching a Japanese media product, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I think those power dynamics and racial issues apply to anime when it's applied to people who are, quote unquote, the normal, not normal, but like the people that are perceived to be Japanese or
Mm-hmm.
of the majority.
Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
it's I don't know if I'm gonna sound dramatic saying egregious, but it is
Mm-hmm.
really just like, wow. It's hard to ignore it with Akio, right? Like, I
Yeah.
I don't think it's wrong to have a character that is a different ethnicity as a villain. Like, by all
Mm-hmm.
means, that would be so weird if I were black. I'm like, no one who's uh of this race can be a villain, of this ethnic background can be a villain. I think it's the way it's done, because there's so
Mm-hmm.
much brutality put into the actions he's
Yeah.
doing, and I think that is very striking in its horror, that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what he does is this manipulation of young demure women. um that's fucked up. It's fucked up. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just gonna say it's
Mm-hmm.
fucked up. um
Yeah.
and it's really discomforting.
Yeah. I think I think I will want to ask you this again when we do the next episode, and see, because like I'm not going to say and next you and soon you will regret your words and deeds. Now fuck that. I think saying that it's gratuitous and violence, with Anthony's description, is a perfectly reasonable tack to come down on, if that's where you end up at the end of the show. But we are going to explore a lot about Anthy and violence done to Anthy in those last 5 episodes. And we sort of do with 34 here. Just, I think, because I truly think, putting aside effect, which I think is very, very reasonably to talk about as a fraught thing, I think Anthy being the only brown-skinned girl on campus is very purposeful in terms of what's going on with her in the show, talking about tropes of expected submissiveness south for Southeast Asian women, and this pervasive racism that everyone always finds a way to blame her. Everything is always the one brown girl's fault, and you know. Anthy is definitely Indian. We do have an article on the site that I think is quite interesting, where somebody did write about why they resonated with Anthy as being sort of black coded as well, in that terms of like being adultified as this sort of all knowing threat.
Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
one term that it's funny you say the black coder thing, because one term that kept coming to mind every time since the kind of sexual aspect of her relationship with Akio has come into play is that someone could easily use the term fast for Anthy.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a term that I have seen in the black community, in my community, be used for girls who have these I think people would call them an entanglement instead of saying it's a fuck ass old man manipulating a child, but like these quote unquote entanglements with adult men. And like it disguises the actual fact of what's happening. But like if you look at
Mm-hmm.
her from a black coded standpoint, like Anthy probably is socially be considered fast. She's a little too mature for her age. And well, it's her fault that she's playing with fire. When in actuality, like, no, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. She's
Mm-hmm.
being manipulated. Like, what does she have to do to get some sympathy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is
Yeah, and
already going through it. What does she fucking have to do to get some sympathy?
yeah,
I have.
for real though. Yeah, and I think maybe part of the justification might be that they are, as we find out in 34, they're supposed to be these ancient sort of mythic archetypes of the prince and the witch, and the world originated with brown people, and that's why we've made them darker skinned than everybody else, and maybe that's part of the thought process. I don't think that excuses it if you say, like, as you very rightly pointed out, where we've ended up, that yeah, whatever a person maybe wants to say, they're trying. Sorry, hold on. There's a really loud scraping sound. Oh, sorry. um, like whatever. I think we can discuss the show is or isn't successfully doing with Anthy by the end. I think they just didn't think with I think Akio's the racial implications of Akio as the darkest skinned man on the cast and also the worst predator. That's just a thing. That's just a thing that the show doesn't really deal with. I'll go ahead and say now, and it fucking is.
And like, I'm not saying like everybody else should be predators to equalize it. Like, no, but like, it's just wild that he's the worst. He looks
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
it's a thing.
Oh my god.
And I mean, just speaking as a Japanese person and, exuding my all of my privilege here and being that asshole, right? I'm going to just come out
Uh-huh.
and say Japanese people don't realize this, right? They don't,
Mm-mm.
like, a lot of people probably consciously don't think about it when they put these tropes in. I think like in terms of making Akio and Anthy brown, it may very well have been like, we want somebody exotic and like
Mm-hmm.
alien, and that's how we wanted to do it, and then that's what you get, right? It wasn't like a conscious brown people are likely to be more, abusive than like Japanese people. Like, it's not so much that consciousness. I think it was they were trying to create a character who is like different, or somebody that will catch your eye and, be cool looking. to lure you, right?
It brings to mind, so in 2018 there was a huge issue online in like in like Japan Twitter. I don't know if it extended to Japanese Twitter as well, but in Japan Twitter about a comedian who painted his face to impersonate Eddie Murphy during a New Year's show. And it brings to mind that like when my coworkers brought it up, they were like, "Well, but he's doing an impression." And my counter was, why did he need to paint himself the color of shoe polish to impersonate Eddie Murphy? He could have just kept his skin tone and done that, or they could have hired, like, I don't know, like a black Japanese person or a black person that speaks Japanese. And like, I remember us having a conversation when my teachers was like, I didn't think about that they could have just hired a black person that spoke Japanese. And I was like, yeah, yeah, they could have. They could have, right? And that kind of makes me think of what's at play here is that I don't think there's like intentional desire to harm through the depiction of Akio as the darkest skinned character in the cast, as the villain, and as a villain who is doing what I would say is like one of the most horrific things you can visit upon somebody else's body, which is taking away their autonomy through the act of physically taking that from them. But I also think, you know, you can say there's no harm intended while also understanding it doesn't matter if there's not harm intended, there's still harm that can happen. Yeah, and it's a multi-layered thing, right? It's multi-layered.
Right. And I'll say that, you know, I feel like Ikuni's a little bit more like Ikuhara's a little bit more aware and sensitive to potential issues like this, right? I'm not saying he's like on the gold star here, because I mean, look at this, but I think he's a little bit more aware or capable of understanding this kind of thing. But the comedians that you're talking about, Sai, like 2000, that's Downtown, they're basically, if you like, what's a good equivalent, they're like I want to say Jeremy Clarkson and Top Gear guys in the UK.
Okay.
But also, what's a good American? Like, basically, they're like,
I was gonna say, there's been blackface on SNL post 2000.
Yeah, exactly.
Wild,
like,
yeah,
it's one of those guys who's like, I'm just trying to be funny. Why are you outlawing my right to be funny, man? Like, you know, it's that kind of comedy crew. So I mean, like, you know, they probably knew it was gonna be pretty racy, and they just wanted to push those boundaries, and you know, they got burned for it.
Because that was one of the things that came out of this was like a lot of people were like, well, Japanese people don't know what blackface is. Bullshit. Blackface got imported to Japan with Commodore Perry. He was like, hey, I got this hot new thing from America. It's called making fun of black people. And like, so like, there's a history there. And like, also in 2018, and I would say now, you can't just say cultures don't know things about things, because like, there is some truth to that. Like, there is some truth if you're in a culture where like you're represented. Yeah. I mean, I think to some degree that's why blackface probably shows up on SNL, is like, it's a writer's room of people who don't look black or aren't black, and like one dude's like, I think this will be funny, and they execute, and then they're like, oh no, the people don't like that. You know, it like,
That was a bad thing we shouldn't have done.
Yeah, like, also give some props that, like, Japanese people in Japan are not ignorant. like,
and
like,
there are more, you know, black Japanese people these days, right? Or, I mean, like, maybe not these days, but, like, they've been there, and they're becoming much more visible, especially now, right?
Yeah, like, give some credit to Japanese people for having awareness and also being able to, like, have an opinion about right from wrong. Because like, when I think about my coworkers and the fact that we had that conversation, like, they ultimately were like, yeah, I can see how that is really harmful, and I can see how that could hurt you. And like, I didn't think about it because, you know, I've lived in Fukushima my entire life, but like, I understand how that is really harmful. And so, like, if they can come to
Yeah.
that conclusion, like, y'all. And I'm interested to revisit the question of Akio because, like, it's also interesting because clearly they're, and like, call me out if I'm wrong, they feel like they're paralleling, like, Hinduism and, like, creation myths. But I also
Hmm.
don't know if that is me reading Indian culture and just going with Hinduism. Like, that might totally be my very American opinion.
Yeah, yeah, we do have to wrap up soon, but before we do, I do want to touch on the that last episode because there's so much there. And I want to read y'all the commentary that went along with 34 and see if that sort of it feels like how that affects the thoughts you're having or what we've been talking about. The write up for that is has the prince become a mechanism to allow princesses to exist? Or is the existence of his princess the only thing holding up the sleeping prince's noble heart? The Rose Bride is born. I've prepared 3 points of view. The prince as a victim. Akio is what the ruined prince has come to in the end of the world. The prince's tragedy. The Rose Bride is born. She saves the prince, and in exchange for keeping him all to herself, she becomes the witch, and that is the tragedy. Ream after ream of faxes comes into the prince's mountain hideaway. I wonder if these sorts of expressions feel a little dated. Would it be text message after text message now? Or flame after flame on the internet? Oh, but I guess you can just block text from people if you don't want them. No, no, a prince mustn't do something like that. It must be rough being a prince in any age.
I'm ashamed to admit that now I have more complex feelings and am still confused.
This is
The
a
Utena experience.
yeah. It starts off with I am completely confused what's going on here, and then at the very bottom you're crying and you're just going, I don't understand what's going on here.
I guess I want to know most of all your feelings on the reveal about Utena's memory, like the refrain we've been seeing since episode 1, and what the act and the reframed context of that.
I'm just gonna say it for everyone. Fucking finally! I was like, something sus about that memory girl. Something sus
Mm-hmm.
about it. And now we find out, oh, it's so sad. It's so sad. It's so much sadder. Oh my god. Oh
You
my
know,
god.
yeah. I when you go back to the Black Rose saga, and I understand why people, I still agree that that is a core part of the show, right? But
Mm-hmm.
seeing that reveal and going like, okay, like finally getting, like, having all those things click into place. I can understand
Mm-hmm.
why some people might look back and go like, man, what the fuck was that all about, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right, because
no,
it's not about Utena and her prince.
right. Because I think this episode 34 is extremely cathartic in, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's finally allowed people to kind of get that release in terms of all this tension of like what the fuck is going on, and finally
Mm-hmm.
kind of getting maybe not so much closure, but at least a way to process the series finally.
Yeah, we finally get the ability to understand all of these moving parts. I find it fascinating that Utana wakes up and does not remember this, but we, the audience, we, the viewer, kind of watching this play in an almost Princess Tutu esque way,
Mm-hmm.
remember this and know that, like, oh shit, they've always been entangled.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really sad. Like, shout out to Anthy for being a girl who cannot die, cannot rest, cannot save her humanity, can't have humanity because no matter what she did, she was always going to be the villain in her own story. Just like, fucking so sad. Jesus Christ.
By the
Yeah.
way, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just reading over the show, the commentary that you just read, Bri, because I happen to also have that booklet. Um, and thinking back on the facts, I did notice the facts, and I was like, yes, I understand what this is where this is going. Because that's very much a anime moment. Like, I mean, yes, like 90s, but also like the reams of faxes coming in. If you're any kind of media employee in the 90s in Japan, oh my god, if the fax is going nonstop, you are going crazy.
This is a snapshot of trauma from the animator's room.
It sure is. It sure is. Yeah. No, I really like how things came together though. Because there's something suspicious about this memory that Utena has. It's too neat. It's too neat, it's too tidy, it's too pristine, and it's not I don't think it's a pessimistic view to say like that is just not how that story feels like it should be. It feels like there's layers missing, and finally we get that filled in, and we see that yeah, unfortunately it is kind of a really brutal narrative. um and that those memories, Utena ends that episode with those memories close to the surface. She has not yet really fully recalled them and internalized them, but they're there and they're waiting to be activated. And I really feel like that's what the end of this oh my god, we've only got like 5 more episodes left. How are they gonna do it? Oh, because there's just one movie, right? Or is there 2?
There's just one movie.
Okay, that's where they get. Okay, I'm excited about that. And I think I don't know. Your laugh made me anxious if I'm excited about it or not.
I love the movie, but it's not what you're expecting.
Oh boy. But no, like like it ends with her realizing, these memories subconsciously they're there, and so I'm really excited to see how over 5 episodes they're gonna make those apparent, because I have anxiety. I'm so anxious for all these children.
It is truly one of my, like, scream, fall on the floor, like, claw at the walls moments forever. That, God, I wish we could have more long original anime, because, like, the payoff that this story about fairy tales and archetypes and princes and princesses and gender roles is ultimately a story about a little girl who wants to save another little girl from her suffering. There's a bit of official promo art of little Utena and little Anthy hugging, and sometimes I look at it and I cry.
Aww. Yeah, because she realizes, like, this poor child cannot die. Like, she is permanently suffering. And all she wants to do is become the prince that can save her. And, like,
which we will definitely unpick.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful, but I also think it's so complex as they lie on those half-circle beds, traumatized.
Yeah. And we do not have time to get into the duality of Akio, but Dios also existing as a character, and like the fact that he leads Utena to her, but also he's the reason she's suffering, and God, it's so much.
Fuck Akio. I hate him. I know
that
he went through trauma.
Is fair and right.
I know he went through trauma, but you can say you need help, but also I'm not going to be the one at the same time.
Yeah, no, fuck him.
He sucks. Yeah,
don't.
I somehow get the feeling he's not in the market for fat trans boys, but I'll do my best to avoid him. Like,
God,
I have too much trauma. He can't traumatize me. What are you gonna do, Akio? Make me feel worse? I already do that myself. Bam.
You're so right, though. Same feels.
Don't worry, y'all. I'm sure that if he could get something out of the two of you, he would absolutely traumatize you.
Oh yeah. Men like him will always find a way to hurt people if that meets an end. Unfortunately,
that's all right. Not much else to traumatize me with anymore. Anyway.
Oh, girl. Now that we're all very sad, do you have any last burning thoughts you want to get out before I bring us in for a landing?
Excited for the end?
God, I cannot wait. I'm so hype. I'm so hype.
I'm so hyped to hear what both of you think.
Bring
Yay.
on the trauma. Yeah.
That feels like a good note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us, AniFam. If you like what you heard /read, consider going to www.animefeminist.com to see more from the team. If you really liked what you heard today, consider going to patreon.com/animefeminist or ko-fi.com/animefeminist. That is the how we stay on the air, as it were. Patreon covers our monthly expenses, editor costs, the cost of, putting things together, keeping things running, transcribing these podcasts, and our coffee is where we save up for bigger ticket items and sort of dream wishes, which it's how this year we've been able to pay our contributors $75 an article instead of $50, which we'd really like to continue doing. We've had some absolutely stellar articles in 2024. And if you'd agree and just want to toss up us a one-off $5 or something, consider heading over there. Otherwise, as I said up above, our socials are on Linktree /animefeminist. We would love to see you there. And next time we're going into the finale. It's big feels. It's the Christmas finale. We're ready. We're not ready.